You open Instagram, you scroll, you can't stop. Have you ever wondered who decided what you just saw?
Today, video is about 60% of time on social media, but Reels only launched on Instagram 6 years ago.
6 years. They rewired how 3 billion people spend their time. I sit down with the person making many of those decisions, Tessa Lyons, Vice President of Product at Instagram. Every day I get the notification, hey, you've used Instagram for 30 minutes today, consider closing it. I always ignore it.
What we ultimately want is for the time that people spend on Instagram to be meaningful.
I ask her if that kind of power ever keeps her up at night.
It feels like a lot of responsibility, and I think we're humbled by it.
Do you ever feel nervous? This week, I get into how Instagram is coming for your TV, why AI is making it harder to trust what you see, and what the person behind all of it says is coming next. This is What's Uptin. All right, so we are in Cannes Lion right now with Tessa Lyon, VP of Product for Instagram. Tessa, welcome to What's Uptin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you.
Excited as well. We have a beautiful view here.
It's very gorgeous.
Okay, let's talk Instagram. Instagram started as a photo sharing app.
Yes.
Today, it's largely video, it's messaging your friends, it's commerce. How do you describe Instagram to someone, if there is anyone out in the world who doesn't know Instagram?
It's a great question. When I think about Instagram, and the core of it is really helping people connect over creativity. And I think the way in which we've done that has really evolved, as you said, over time. Originally we were just a place for sharing square filtered photos with people who followed you. But if you think about it, if that was all Instagram was today, I think there's no way we'd be as culturally relevant as we are. And so one of the things that I'm really proud of is I think we've constantly been willing to evolve what Instagram is in order to make sure that we're delivering on that promise of helping people connect over creativity in the ways that they want. And I think one of the things we've learned is the ways in which people want to connect really change over time, right? One example of that is video. It's crazy to think about the fact that, today video is about 60% of time on social media, but Reels only launched on Instagram 6 years ago. And I was actually the PM on Reels when we first launched it. And at the time, people were really skeptical. There was a lot of questioning of how will we integrate video into this app that really is about photos and is about connected content. And I think that what we had to do was we had to prove that we could do it in a way that was uniquely Instagram. And we had to figure out how to do it in a way that was still pretty simple, that still upheld the simplicity and craft of the app. And I think that we've gotten some things right, we've gotten some things wrong, but I think the fact that we've always been willing to really disrupt ourselves and keep evolving is what keeps Instagram relevant and is what keeps it a place where people come to connect over creativity.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about kind of the notion that Gen Z doesn't post as much.
Yes.
And that Instagram has historically been a place for your friends. You see your friends' content, you post for your friends. It's evolved since, right?
Yeah.
Where now there's some friends, but it's a lot of people you don't know who feel like friends.
Totally. And I think that, looking at what Gen Z is doing is a really important way of predicting, I think, where trends are going on social media, but also in the world more broadly, right? Looking at that age group is always such an important predictor of where trends are going in culture and in the world beyond that. And so one of the things that we've seen, as you noted, is that earlier generations were pretty comfortable with this broadcast sharing, sharing these moments on your feed, on your profile grid, sharing them with all of your followers in this sort of broadcast way. And what we've seen with Gen Z is they really prefer to share in much more private audiences. So Gen Z, for example, uses close friends, which is our smaller audience for story sharing, at 2.5 times the rate of other audiences. And Notes, our product where you can share.
Say where you are with a word or two.
Exactly. They use it at 5 times the rate of other audiences. So there's this very clear indication that Gen Z is shifting towards these smaller, more controlled, more limited audiences. And we want to evolve with them, right? We want to continue to be a place where they can share that way on Instagram. So one of the things we launched just last month is a product called Instance. And Instance was really built with Gen Z in mind for Gen Z. And what it enables Gen Z to do is share photos that are unedited, unfiltered in sort of one tap with the friends that they choose. And we've been so amazed by how well it's working for that audience because it's really meeting them where they are and enabling them to share and connect in the ways that work for them.
Yeah, how has that been going? Because I saw the initial launch.
Yes.
I saw a lot of my friends trying it, doing it. How's it going now?
It's going really well. I mean,
Really?
look, it's working better for some audiences than others, right? It's working really well for Gen Z who wants to be able to share this less polished, more unedited, sort of real-time photo with their actual friends. And I think that we're going to continue to see it grow among that audience. Sometimes what we see is the products that we launch for Gen Z or younger audiences end up working well for all audiences. Some of them don't. Notes is still really a product that works really well for younger audiences. And it's okay that not everybody adopts it. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that when people come to Instagram, they're able to connect with the people they care about, the creators that they care about in the way that works for them. And that's going to look different for different audiences.
Absolutely. So when you think about so every day I get the notification on my phone, hey, you've used Instagram for 30 minutes today, consider like closing it. I always ignore it. But how are you doing with the fact that people are like, oh my God, like I'm using this product so much?
Yeah. Look, it's something that we take really seriously. And what we ultimately want is for the time that people spend on Instagram to be meaningful. And what we know is that if you take a long-term view, what you want is for users to feel like they're getting value from the product and that they really have control over it. And so we've built features like the one you're describing that help people feel empowered so that they can manage the time that they're spending. Because at the end of the day, the thing that we're focused on isn't driving the most time spent. It's really making sure that people love Instagram. And the thing that I actually look at to see if we're being successful is, are we the most preferred app? For the users who use us, for the creators who share on Instagram, are we the app they most prefer? And I think that's a really good North Star for us to work towards.
Absolutely. Any new products that you can share about that you're working on or coming out?
Well, one of the things I'm really excited about is that we've been working on Instagram on TV. And Instagram on TV, to me, is a really natural evolution of what Instagram is really about. We talked about helping people connect over creativity. And I think the truth is, like, one of the ways in which people do that today is in their living rooms with their friends and family around a TV. And we already know that people are using Instagram in that environment. And a lot of our product roadmaps are inspired by how people are already using our products.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like I often find I'm with friends in my living room, maybe we're watching something on TV, but we're also like scrolling on Instagram, we're DMing each other, we're sitting around somebody's feed to sort of see what's going on in the world. And so we built this product and we first shipped it in December, and we've been bringing it to more and more TV platforms, including most recently Samsung. And we're really early in this TV journey, but I think about it a little bit the way that I think about Reels, which is like it's a multi-half and multi-year journey to build up a new type of content and ecosystem and experience for creators and for consumers. But it's one that I think is going to be a really natural evolution for Instagram, and we're really excited.
Let's take a step back because I know there's a lot of people who still don't know what that means when you say Instagram for TV.
Yeah.
I've read up on it, but I've never like experienced it. So explain what that actually means. Are you sending your curated feed to the TV and watching like in your living room?
So that's one of the things you can do. So the way it works today is that you can log into an Instagram app on TV. It's available now across a few different TV platforms. As I mentioned, Samsung most recently, but also Google and Amazon. And when you log into Instagram on TV, you see content that's recommended for you, similar to what you see on your phone. You can actually continue watching things that you were watching on your phone. You can see what's popular with your friends so that you can jump in on content that they like. And you see a lot of topics that are related to your interests on Instagram. So say you're really interested in the World Cup. You can see a bunch of reels about the World Cup that are recommended for you, and you dive in.
Swipe still on your phone.
And you don't have to use your phone at all to be doing this. So you can just control it through the TV. So you tap into like a channel about the World Cup, it starts scrolling through different reels about that topic. And what you can do though is if you find something on your phone that you want to, you can cast to your TV so that you can have this connection between your phone and the TV experience. And one of the things that we're actually testing now is bringing stories to TV. Because one of the things we heard from people in early testing was they love catching up with creators they care about on TV and seeing their reels, but they also want to see their stories. So we're testing that at the moment, and we'll see how that does.
So, I'm a creator now for I think over 5 years, and I started in 2020, and I've kind of from the beginning, especially with TikTok, learned that your following is important, but what's more important is the actual video, right?
Yeah.
And this is a blessing and a curse for someone like me, like 3 million followers across platforms. It's a blessing because I can make a video that, goes viral, even if I have less followers on one of the platforms. But it's a curse because it's like, well, wait a minute, I have over 1 million on this platform and I only got 2,000 views, right? But I don't spend too much time thinking about it. I'm just like, I've gotten so good at just make another video, not obsessing over the views. But you do hear people like frustrated who will be like, I have 1 million on Instagram, but my reach, what's going on? And again, I don't think this is an Instagram thing. I think this is it's an opportunity. It's a curse depending on the piece of content. But what do you say to them?
Yeah, no, look, it's a great question. And I think at the end of the day, when creators have built up a following, it matters that they're able to connect with that community and reach those people. So I think one of the things that's happened in the industry more broadly, and it's true on Instagram, is that the main experience on most of these apps has really become a recommendation surface, right? It's migrated from being a place where you see content from accounts that you follow to a place where you see content that's algorithmically recommended for you. And as you said, there's a blessing and a curse in that, right? The blessing is like creators can get discovered overnight and grow huge followings despite having sort of no offline, fame or recognition. And I think that's an amazing thing and part of what's making this a really exciting time in creativity and
for
in
anyone
art.
in the
For
world.
anybody.
Literally,
It's
yeah.
really incredible how
Yeah.
it's really broken down barriers and gates of distribution that have existed for so long. So that's great. I think that at the same time, it has given people and creators less of a feeling of agency over their experience. And I think that's a problem. And so something that we've been working on is helping people have more control over their Instagram experience. And so what that looks like for consumers is that you can actually go into a feature we built called Your Algorithm and see what interests we predict you have and take control of those interests so that you have more agency over that experience. And for creators, one of the things we're looking to do is make sure that when you do have a connected following, your content that's really for them is able to reach them when it's relevant. And I think, there's different ways of doing that, whether that's broadcast channels, whether that's looking at, subscriptions, whether it's looking at how stories are part of the equation. It's really looking at a full suite of products that help creators reach and build the communities that they cultivate online.
It's an interesting take. Yeah, I get a lot of people coming up to me like, I want to start content, I want to start creating. Like, what's your advice? This and that. And it's funny. I actually always say, I was like, well, the algorithm actually has your back.
Yes.
People like to say the algorithm is your enemy, but I say the algorithm has your back because I say if it's a bad video and maybe you were nervous about posting it, post it anyway. Because if it's a bad video, it won't be shown to a lot of people. And it's actually really nice for framing because then it lowers the friction that they have internally on should I post, should I not, which I know is like close friends to do, right?
Yes.
As well. It's like, oh, I don't want everyone to see it, but I want these people to see it. And so same thing with the algorithm, like if you're nervous about a video, just post it. And I know trial reels is obviously a big one too.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Well, first of all, I love your framing, and I actually really agree with that because I think that ultimately we believe that our incentives and creators' incentives are aligned. We want to help creators produce the best content for them and their audiences, and then help them reach the audience for whom that content is going to best resonate. And the way that we've really built our recommendation system is to help content basically audition in a small audience first to see how well it resonates, and not just how well it resonates, but who it resonates with. So that as that content is doing well with certain audiences, we can show it to more and more audiences of that type for whom that content is going to do well. And we actually call this whole thing a star search system because it really is about going out and finding what is the great content, regardless of how big the following is of the creator, and how can we get it in front of the right audience to make it work well. Trials is a great feature that we built on top of this, which basically, for those who don't know, is something that we built because one of the things we heard from creators was they were afraid of taking creative chances on Instagram. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want, right? We want Instagram to be the place where creators feel so supported in taking creative chances and trying things. And so Trials was built to give creators a sense of security where they can take creative chances and know that that content won't be shown to their followers. It won't be put on their profile until they choose for that to happen. So what happens is it gets shown to other audiences who are not already following them. And if it does well, they can choose to say like, okay, great, actually this did work. Like this chance paid off. Now I want my followers to see it and I want it to be on my profile. And it's working really well. And one of the cool things we've learned is that actually a lot of creators are using it for that purpose, but many are using it for really like A/B testing. They're trying different versions of the joke, they're trying different hooks, and they'll try like 5 or 6 versions of a piece of content to see which one works. So it's actually sort of a partner in helping them hone exactly how they're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have over 3 billion monthly active users. Do you ever feel nervous about, the fact that you're basically you and your team are the biggest like editors of content, of the news that we are consuming, of entertainment that we are consuming? Does that ever, feel like the pressure is on?
It feels like a lot of responsibility, and I think we're humbled by it, and we want to make sure that we live up to that responsibility and do well by the community and by creators. It also feels really exciting. I mean, the thing that really motivates me is these stories of creators who overnight, are able to turn some passion and art that they have into a living, right? They're able to actually make a living from the thing that they love doing. And I think that that's an incredibly important and meaningful thing. And so it's something we take really seriously, but mostly something that we're very excited about.
Absolutely. Can you talk to me a little bit about the project management of what how a new product goes to market, so to
Yeah.
speak. Because again, back to the over 3 billion people,
Yeah.
you can't afford to do something wrong, right? You can trial things and stuff, but what is it like on the back end before you have an idea? Then what happens?
Yeah, it's
or
a great
someone on
question.
your team has an idea. Yeah.
It's a great question. And there's a few different sort of origin stories, if you will. I mean, I think one of them that has always been core to the way we build is that we really watch how people are using our products. And so, I talked about TV earlier. One of the things that we heard in research was that particularly Gen Z would get together in their living rooms and just cast their phone or mirror their phone from their phone to their TV in order to watch their Reels algorithm with friends. And we were like, okay, we could probably make this easier. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we could probably make this a little better for you. And so a lot of our product development process starts by just really spending time with the people who use Instagram, the creators who share on Instagram, and understanding what they're doing and how we can better meet those needs. And then we do a lot of testing. We take really seriously what it means to sort of introduce a new feature on Instagram. We care a lot about keeping the app simple and keeping the app focused on our core mission. And so for us to introduce something, we want to make sure that it's working within that broader product experience. And that means we'll test a lot. We'll do a lot of user research. We'll do a lot of creator research. And we're also willing to iterate when we haven't gotten things right. Sometimes we'll ship things and they don't quite work and we rework them. So one example, we had a feature called content notes where you could add a note on a piece of content and it would bump it in the algorithm for your followers. And it was a cool feature. It just didn't quite work. And so we kind of unshipped it. We took it back. We iterated on a little more. And we ultimately ended up sharing it as reshares. And we enabled people to add to captions when they reshared content. And that's working much better. And I think this willingness to try things, but also be humble about when they need to be sort of rethought is really core to our product development process.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about different cultures because, Instagram, massive in India and
Yes.
Philippines, Brazil, US, obviously. So any interesting nuances that you find with behavioral patterns or anything from different countries?
I mean, absolutely. Instagram in India is even more focused on Reels than elsewhere in the world. And so when we think about features for Reels and we look at sort of what's working in India and how different changes will sort of work in that country. The other thing is, like we talked about, this broadcast sharing versus more private sharing. The main sort of filter there is really on age, as we discussed, but there's also differences by countries, and certain countries in which stories does much better versus other countries where the feed is still like a dominant way of sharing. And this is something that matters a lot to us in terms of making sure we build like a global product that's simple around the world, but that also delivers on, what makes sense in different countries. And part of how we do that is like our teams spend time doing research trips and really working with creators and users around the world in order to understand what's working and what's not.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about AI. I know, like when I post a reel, there's an option to disclose,
Yes.
that this is an AI video or I used AI. How are you thinking about the next couple of years and ensuring that people the trust that
Yeah.
that this is a human video and this actually happened, especially in certain markets and things like that? What's the kind of strategy around that?
I think it starts with transparency and control for people. And so I think, there's a lot of awesome AI generated media, and there's also some AI generated media that's not as great.
AI slop, right?
Some AI slop, right? And I think first and foremost, we need to enable people to understand when something is produced with AI. And we do that in a couple of ways. There's metadata that the whole industry is sort of aligning around to make sure that content generated with some of these AI tools is able to be understood as being AI generated.
Interesting.
There's also classification work that we can do where we build models that predict whether something is AI generated or AI edited. And once we have that signal, we can give more information to users, whether that's on the media itself or in a sort of overflow menu where we're sharing more information about the content that people are seeing. And I think that's really important because I think that for a lot of people, they actually don't mind AI generated media. They don't like feeling deceived, right? And so I think the biggest user problem is this AI generated media that is photorealistic, that people don't understand to be AI generated. And I think that's where we just need to help be transparent about it and make sure that people understand what they're seeing. But it's also important that we give people control because I think different audiences are going to have different tolerance and interest in that type of content. We know that younger audiences like a lot of AI generated media. They find it funny, they like sharing it with friends. Not all audiences do. And so we talked about this URL algorithm feature that we're building. And one of the main things we see people telling us they want to see less of is AI slop. And so one of the things we're working on is giving people that control and then making sure that the ranking and the algorithm are delivering the content that's relevant for them. And that's not going to be the same across the board.
Do you ever see a scenario in maybe a couple years where there's human verification where I do some sort of test to prove that I'm a human, and maybe it's like instead of a blue check mark, it's a green check mark or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think this is a very interesting line of inquiry and something that we are thinking about, because I think it's possible that we get to a place where it's easier to label what is human generated
Than an account.
than to identify what's AI generated. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like it'll be easier to sort of verify the sort of human and authentic side. And so this is one of the things that we're looking at. And I mentioned there's this third party work that's being done on classifying and watermarking content as AI generated. And that same group is also thinking about how do we identify when something is captured by a camera and captured by a real person, and how can we give people information when that's the case. You know, saying like this is a real person and this was shot on their iPhone is very important context in knowing if something is real versus not.
Absolutely. I'm sure the number one question you get in your personal life is, how do I grow on Instagram? So what do you tell them?
Well, look, I think that the answer varies depending on the type of creator and what they're trying to achieve, right? And I think the main thing that I would say is take chances on Instagram. We want Instagram to be a place where you can come and share the things that you're most proud of and the things that you're trying out and the things you're experimenting with and the things you're not totally sure of yet. And we want to help you find an audience for that. We want to find the audience that's going to resonate with what you are creating. So try different things, use trials, take advantage of all of the features that we're building to figure out what works for you and your creativity and what works for the community that you're building. That's the main advice I'd have.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thing that you think is important for people to know about where the future of Instagram is headed?
It's a great question. I mean, honestly, I think that we're in this really exciting moment where anybody can reach an audience if they have a point of view and something to say. And increasingly, there are tools that everybody has access to be able to produce amazing content, right? And I think we sort of take for granted how much that's changed in the last 10 years, how much anyone has been able to actually build an audience, how much anyone has been able to create. And I think what we're seeing is really this like incredible explosion of creativity that I think Instagram is a part of and the industry more broadly is a part of. And the thing I think that matters the most going forward is going to be who are the creators who in this abundance of creativity are able to really build authentic identities and authentic relationships with their communities. Because the thing that we see is that there's great content from all over the world from amazing creators. The thing that really breaks through and the thing that lasts is authenticity. And so that's the thing I think that creators should be focused on and that we should be focused on as a platform in the next few years.
Absolutely. I think one thing I've noticed is that, like, especially here at Cannes Lion, I'll run into someone and they're like, oh, it's great. We're finally meeting in person. You know, we've been following each other for years. And I'll have this moment where I'm like, wait, have we not met in person?
Yes, because you already feel like you know.
And it's scary, but it's also kind of cool because exactly, like we have these parasocial relationships with someone where we're following them for years, we're talking to them, we're DMing them, but we've never actually physically met them. But like my brain, I can speak to myself, is like blurring the two lately, where I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, we've never met in person. But it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool because it pushes beyond the limits of our physical being, and we can feel like we have these like connections beyond just the physical world.
I think that's awesome. I love hearing that because that's so much what we want to have happen. You know, like that to me is success for us, of having people who build real world relationships on Instagram first and then are able to sort of transfer those into you know, really meeting in person. So that's great to hear.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're quite busy this week here at Cannes Lion, but it was great to meet you.
Well, thank you. I love chatting.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of What's Uptin, where I bring you inside the minds driving tech, money, and power. Follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow my personal account on Instagram at Uptin. Would love to connect with you.